Es Borinquen la hija del mar y el sol, 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 del mar y el sol. Jose, can you see by the dawn's early light, but so proudly we hailed at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the
I thought dating again would be tough.
Car insurance. This year, the island of Puerto Rico becomes the second home of the Montreal Expos and hosts to 22 major league games. It's an island deeply rooted in baseball. It's generated greats like Pirates outfielder Roberto Alomar, Puerto Rico's equivalent of Babe Ruth. And the Baby Bull, Giants and Cardinals first baseman Hall of Famer Orlando Cepeda. Now a new generation of players continue this island's legacy, including one from its most successful family. Robbie Alomar comes home to play for the first time.
It's a dream come true for me. I never thought that with a big league uniform I was going to play in Puerto Rico. It's going to be a treat for my family, for my mom to be watching me play in Puerto Rico, where I grew up.
Major League Baseball comes to San Juan at Hiram Bithorn Stadium tonight. The first game between the New York Mets and the Montreal Expos. Step 2 in David Cohn's comeback as he faces Tomo Ohka of the Expos. This island nation, roughly the size of Connecticut, population 4 million, but for 65 years, a baseball hotbed, one of these nations that loves the game, and Major League history gets started tonight. No team has ever played as many home games in a second site as Montreal will here in San Juan this year. And welcome with Fran Healy, Ted Robinson. It's really a thrill to be here in a place that so embraces the game, and nobody's been more embraced here tonight than Robbie Alomar.
Really a first family of Major League Baseball and baseball here in Puerto Rico because his dad played 15 years in the big leagues. Sandy Alomar Sr., his brother, a catcher in the big leagues. And of course, Robbie Alomar on his way to the Baseball Hall of Fame. But there have been some real big names that played Major League Baseball that grew up in this area. How about Roberto Clemente? He was the guy everybody looked up to. The baby bull, Orlando Cepeda, who threw out the first ball tonight. Vic Power, the first hot dog in Major League Baseball. Jose Cruz Sr., his son's out hot start. So is that guy, Ivan Rodriguez, one of the best catchers in the game. Juan Gonzalez with all kinds of power. You got the Yankee center fielder, Bernie Williams. There he is, Robbie Alomar. What an ovation he got here tonight when he was introduced.
Mob for autographs all during batting practice. David Cone pitches tonight, by the way, but we'll come back and Clemson will speak with Alomar next.
New York Mets baseball is brought to you by...
He is more highly regarded in the history of Puerto Rican baseball than the great Roberto Clemente, but the first family started with Sandy Alomar, an infielder for several big league teams in the 60s, and has given way to two sons, all-star catchers Sandy Jr. and the man regarded as the best second baseman of his generation, Roberto Alomar. And for more on Robbie, let's go down to Clemson Smith Munoz.
Thank you, Ted. When Roberto received that huge ovation before the game, he had tears in his eye. And he spoke to us earlier in the week about the significance of coming home to play baseball.
Well, that means a lot to me. When I was a little kid, I always dreamed to play in the big leagues. And here I am in my 16 years in the big leagues. And now, getting the chance to put my big league uniform, I'm going home. And my mom being alive, getting the chance to see me in Puerto Rico, I think that's a dream come true for me. And not only for my mom, but for my home country, for everybody to come and watch me play.
The stadium is not very big, so it's going to be crowded, it's going to be noisy, it's going to be boisterous. How different is baseball in Puerto Rico compared to the States?
Well, they have a lot of passion for the game. They have a lot of love. You're going to see some people singing. You're going to see some people loud. They're going to go out there and enjoy the game, especially big league games, because they never get the chance to see big league games in Puerto Rico. I think last year was the first time when
2 years ago.
or 2 years, yeah, 2 years ago when Texas and Toronto play in Puerto Rico, and I'm real happy for this, real happy.
When we come back, Major League Baseball from San Juan, Puerto Rico.
They changed the McNuggets, you know.
Just about set to play here in San Juan. Tomo Ohka to start for Montreal. Mets batting order tonight will begin with Roger Cedeno in center field. As you see, Ohka's numbers from one start against the Mets last Friday at Shea Stadium. And here's Cedeno to lead off. He'll be followed by Alomar and Floyd here in the first inning. Hiram Bithorn Stadium. It is a hitter-friendly park in every regard except one. There's artificial turf. The fences are absurdly short down the lines and in the alleys. As home plate umpire Jeff Kellogg and crew chief Joe Weston called time for a moment. They're trying to get some photographers off the field of play. But the big thing, and you'll see it here as we pan to the right, look at the foul territory. And I had no idea, Fran, until we walked into the stadium tonight, the amount of foul ground here. The umpire and crew. And that is the one thing that a pitcher has a chance to get away with. If you can get some fielders who can move, corner fielders that can move, you can steal some outs.
You know, it's funny, Ted, because Tom Glavine came out and took a look at the field, and Tom Glavine that there's more room from home plate to the backstop than there is from second base to the center field wall. He liked the idea.
All right, while the umpires talk to the managers about this, let's take a look at the Mets batting order. And it is Cedeno, Alomar, and Floyd. Then Vaughn, Wigginton, and Burnett. Mike Piazza getting the night off. That's all it is, according to Art Howe, just a night off. He struggled, particularly at the plate in Florida, so Vance Wilson catches, and then Rey Sanchez and David Cone.
And what a reception Mike Piazza got here, almost as loud as Roberto Alomar's reception. We're set to go as Roger Cedeno is going to face starting pitcher Tomo Ohka. Ohka has struggled in his appearances against the Mets.
Delay here. There's a problem with an overflow photography on the Mets side of the field, and I think they had to just get both managers to agree they're going to allow it to continue. So we're set to go, and Cedeno takes a rip at Ohka's first pitch.
And despite the festivities here in Puerto Rico, the one thing the players can get is this is a regular season ball game. This affects the standings.
And Cedeno chops one back, but look at the nice job by Ohka. So Ohka gets Cedeno, and now let's take a listen to another greeting for Roberto Alomar. Jugando en la base con el número 12, Roberto Alomar. Alomar wants so bad to have a big series here, but on the first pitch, bounces one right to Wil Cordero, native of Puerto Rico, and very quickly 2 outs here for the Mets in the first inning.
And defensively for the Expos, who are playing some good baseball. They got some fine young talent on the ball club. Tomo Ohka will utilize that defense as much as he can tonight because he's a control pitcher, finesse pitcher. Vasquez, who pitches for the Expos, and Armas for the Expos are power pitchers.
Here comes Cliff Floyd. He's taking a little time now after the first 2 batters. 1 out quickly. Tomo Ohka had a terrific year last year in Montreal, but the Mets have had luck with him. And after beating him at Shea last Friday night in David Cohn's comeback game, Ohka is now 0-4. The Mets with a 5.9 ERA. He's 13-8 with the 7th best ERA in the National League.
He's one of 14 players born outside the United States. The Expos have more of an international flavor than any other team in baseball.
The odds are getting a rare night to watch. 4 games that he sat out for the suspension last week. Here's Cliff Floyd. Long shot.
The ball exploded off his bat last night in South Florida. And it looked like that was going to be a big insurance run, but the Marlins come back and win the ball game. Floyd clobbered that pitch.
Messing up. This is artificial turf. It is very short, 315 to the left field corner, 313 to the right field corner. They won't even put markings up in the alleys because they're so short. They don't want to call attention to it.
You know, it's funny.
And it's 399 to dead center. But you can see how the field, their curves. I mean, it really out to get to 399 to dead center.
And I believe the rule book states, as you look at 315 down the left field line and 313 will be down the right field line. The rule book states, and I believe that the date was 1958. After a certain date, all major league stadiums had to go 325 down the lines and exactly 400 or more to center field.
And Ohka gets Floyd swinging, and so the Mets struggling with the bats, and it goes very quickly here in the first inning in San Juan.
On April 16th,
You may be the chosen one.
please be a
David Cohn's second start in his comeback with the Mets, facing the same team that he shut down for 5 innings last week. It's Andy Chavez, Jose Vidro, Vladimir Guerrero up front. Then Wil Cordero, Brad Wilkerson, Orlando Cabrera, 4, 5, 6. Jose Macias starts instead of Fernando Tatis at third base. And Brian Schneider is the catcher.
And on the mound, David Cohn. He's got 1 win under his belt as he chases that plateau of 200 wins. You see his numbers from his first game last Friday night on a cool evening in New York. And this is exactly the opposite tonight here in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Now defensively, all eyes will be on Alomar, but Vaughn, Alomar, Sanchez, and Wigginton will be in the infield. Floyd, Cedeno, and Burnitz left to right in the outfield. Vance Wilson behind the plate. And David Cohn, who will utilize that defense on the mound.
Well, the 2 best second basemen from Puerto Rico, both on the field tonight. Alomar has been the king, and Jose Vidro may well be the heir apparent.
Alomar, from day 1 in the big leagues, has been very, very good. Had a bad year last year with the Mets. I have to respect the second baseman. Vidro, on the other hand, they had to motivate him in Montreal by bringing in Mickey Morandini. Put some heat on Vidro, and he really accepted the heat, and he's doing very well now.
They're just, you know that Alomar, Sanchez, Wil Cordero, and Vidro, the players who are from Puerto Rico, want so badly to perform well. For Alomar and Sanchez as visiting players, it's just this one 4-game series. Baseball here, so many years has seen the great big leaguers come here and play in the winter. Including Frank Robinson, who managed down here for many winters.
And Frank Robinson had a great effect on a lot of major league players as a manager down here and as a player down here.
Chavez slaps that over Wigginton's head, and Andy Chavez has a leadoff hit. So that was a real pest to the Mets last year and again last weekend at Shea.
numbers from each side of the plate are very similar. The right-handed batter is hit 307. He slugged 466 with a 364 on base percentage. As a lefty, he is at 304, slugged 476 and a 360 on base percentage. He can play. He can play defense.
That is a strength for Cone, and that's a switch hitter's dream. You have numbers that identical for both sides. Career number. I mean, that's the ideal for a switch hitter.
Certainly, the key for a switch hitter is you look at one of the best players in baseball, Vladimir Guerrero. You end up switch hitting because you want to get that breaking ball to come into you. And some hitters feel a lot more comfortable, for example, if you're a left-hander facing a right-hander and a right-hander facing a left-hander. There's a comfort zone at the plate. You understand it?
The bouncer to Vaughn. He'll have to go to first base. Chavez advances. Vaughn didn't want to risk the throw there. Was so well.
You see, Mo Vaughn was thinking about it. He said, "I'll get the sure out at first base. Base open for Vladimir Guerrero, who will be followed by Wil Cordero." Early in the ball game, or late in the ball game, or in the middle of the ball game, don't let this guy beat you. He's put up some unbelievable numbers, even in comparison to the great Roberto Clemente at the same age.
There's no moment more crucial for David Cone than when he faced Vladimir Guerrero last Friday night at Shea in the third inning with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and no score. Vladimir had come through with a hit in that situation. Who knows what could have happened in the first game for David Cone, but Cone struck out Vladimir and wound up getting those 5 scoreless innings.
Roberto Clemente's number next to him, Cha-Cha, the baby bull, Orlando Cepeda. Well, David Cone certainly is doing the thing he has to do against Guerrero. Make him chase a bad ball. If he doesn't, you walk him. He chased a bad ball on the first pitch. If he didn't, it would be 2-0. I know a lot of people are against pitching around somebody in the first inning, but why not?
So I say these are the big moments for Cone. I think the at-bats with Vladimir were last Friday. 1-1.
Went inside with that fastball. Tried to go inside with the fastball. And Orlando Cepeda, very popular figure here in Puerto Rico. His dad was one of the best ever to play in Puerto Rico. Orlando used to throw the ball harder than that when he played in Kansas City.
Well, just a wonderful hitter with San Francisco and St. Louis. With the string on Vladimir. That's how Cone pitched last Friday to Vladimir in the game at Shea.
Well, he's getting him to chase those bats. It's a great shot of Vladimir Guerrero pulling his head. So even the greatest of hitters will pull their head on occasion.
But that's such a great example of how David Cone still knows how to pitch. 68 miles an hour, and Vladimir couldn't wait. Vladimir got that one, and it is foul. Cleared the bullpen.
Vladimir Guerrero has one of the longest swings in the game, one of the quickest, and he's a contact hitter. Oh, he just got out in front of that baby.
And what happened last week at Shea? Guerrero hit one 8 miles off Cone, foul in the first inning, and the next pitch Cone struck him out.
Bounce it. They're going to go away, I believe. No, they're going inside with that. Be bad inside.
And Chavez is caught. I can't believe this. Boy, that's a huge break. Wigginton puts the tag on, and Chavez runs into out number 2. And where, Frank Robinson's going to ask, where are you going?
Chavez with Guerrero at the plate, tries to steal third, and David Cone wisely goes all the way around off the mound. They get Chavez, and this one that's going to get him is Frank Robinson. Easy play right there. Didn't even take a throw from the infield.
So it's 2-2 to Vladimir. That is just like last Friday, the long foul ball, and then the next pitch gets him to wave at one out of the zone. Cone has struck out Vladimir Guerrero 3 times now in 2 games.
business? Get odorators.
New York Mets baseball brought to you in part by Ford. Visit your tri-state quality Ford store with the best-selling vehicles in America. By the new photo from Panasonic, Ideas for Life. And by Nissan and your Nissan dealer. Very warm, sticky night in San Juan. It rained very hard all night, all morning. It really rained up until about 2 o'clock this afternoon here in San Juan. But it stopped in time for the teams to come out and be able to take batting practice on a field that neither team had ever been on before today. And it looked good for tonight's game. First of 4 this weekend.
Just think, this is your home field if you're the Expos, and you saw it for the first time today.
2 strikes now to move on. And this is the matchup that the Mets would dearly love to see Mo continue. Mo Vaughn lifetime against Ohka is 10 for 15 with 3 home runs.
Mo would like to take him on the road. Look at those numbers. You see that, you know, Ohka just is not going to overpower you. He has to be perfect, and Mo Vaughn has that great plate coverage. And Ohka can't really throw it by inside.
And that would explain Vaughn's mark against him. And beat him where pitchers try to beat Mo. There's the shift with shortstop Cabrera moved to the right side of second.
Looks like Toka with Mo Vaughn. It's slower, and he changes off this. He throws a changeup and then changes off the changeup. To set up that changeup, you have to have some pretty good muster. I think the changeup's a great pitch. David Cohn showed it against Guerrero, the off-speed breaking ball.
And Mo grounds one right into the shift. And the shortstop, Cabrera, makes the play.
Well, last night, Ty Wigginton got a fastball. It was 96 miles per hour. And he just turned up the dial and jerked it over that left field fence. He hit a bullet.
Well, Ty Wigginton had a fine series in Florida, hit 2 home runs, and was 5 for 8 overall. The one Met bat that was alive.
So he had 2 home runs. He hit 1 off a fastball 96 miles per hour, and then Redmond threw a fastball about 86 miles an hour and hit that one. This is more like a right-handed Redmond. Tomo Ohka's not overpowering, so he's going to try to finesse Wigginton. Wigginton so far has looked good. He looked good last year.
Baseball to the inside, missing. 2-1 as we look at our Hyundai scouting report on Ohka.
6'1", 180 pounds, low 90s, maybe lower.
He answered that stamina question. That was a rap that had followed him when he came to Montreal, but last year Tomo Ohka pitched 7 innings or more in more than half of his starts for the Expos. He was the guy that by the end of the year was their best starting pitcher. The staff that had Armas and Vasquez.
And the complete game is going the route of the. I don't think you're going to see very many of those things anymore. They go to the bullpen. They'll go to the bullpen in the 6th inning, 7th inning. Although this is a throwback manager. He's going to make decisions he feels is right. He's not going to worry about somebody after the game asking him a question about a move he made. Of course, really, there's nobody in Montreal that follows a team, is there?
Wigginton draws a walk. Well, there are quite a few, as you would imagine, there's a tremendous amount of interest in this game in particular, the first game in San Juan. And Montreal is, there's no television back to Montreal, but there is both French and English language radio. And that logo caught me by surprise. And I don't think that's going to be received real well in Montreal. They're billing this game as the Expos home opener.
You know what? With the fan base they have now, this is their opening day. Home opener for them.
And it's a difficult position MLB has placed themselves into, because people here have seen these games very well. Major League Baseball is going to make money off these games in San Juan.
And of course, Major League Baseball is thinking international. I don't blame them.
Right. But you still have to play 58 games or 59 games in Montreal this year. And I was talking to some of the Expos executives tonight, and they said actually they're selling more tickets this year for the games in Montreal than they have the last few years. Now, it's still not a lot. Okay, I'm not trying to paint a picture of like 3 million. They're just saying their ticket sales now are ahead of where they've been the last couple of years. Burnett fouls one. Now here's a ball that may be playable. Macias with a long run, and there's the first example of this stadium. And Wigginton tags, and he got there. Good heads-up play by Wigginton. And he had Gary Pettis there, the first base coach, helping him to make sure he did it.
Great instincts by Wigginton, because he realized, like Ted said, there's a lot of foul territory. So I'm sure the players were talking about that. Macias makes the grab and assumes that he's at Shea. Going to try to advance. It's a fly ball to left field. Back to the runner. Jeremy Burnett knew he had a problem.
See, that's what the hitters are going to hate that.
But runners got to be aware here in this ballpark, because a lot of foul territory.
There's been a lot of little things that you like about Ty Wiggins in the first 10 games of the season. Watching him now with his chance to play every day.
Yeah, I don't think anybody believed that he would be the third baseman this year when Edgardo Alfonso was with the ball club last year. Once Fonzie was gone, then everybody looked to Ty Wigginton, and so far he has stepped up. Sure, he's happy.
Well, I'd be a lot happier if Vance Wilson can deliver. The Mets could, in essence, steal a run here. Vance Wilson has had this knack. He's been a very timely hitter, both last year and his opportunities to play this year. He's got 3 hits this year, 4 runs batted in. That 7th spot, Sanchez behind him. Wilson takes low. So in this series, I think you're going to see teams think more about making sure that their corner infielders and corner outfielders are ready for that foul ground. Because that ball that Burnett's hit is not catchable in any other National League ballpark.
And you mentioned that Macias was going after it and had a shot. And you know what? He had plenty of room to spare when he caught it. And he assumed that the runner would not tag it first. Can't assume. Not here.
It's foul right to Matt Galati, 2-2.
You know what? At Shea Stadium, Matt would have taken that and thrown it into the stands. He couldn't reach the stands here.
I was surprised when we walked in here, and at first thing I thought, how come they didn't add seats like everybody else does now?
Yeah,
seats, and I am assuming because of the dugout, they just can't. The dugouts are so far away that what are you going to do?
You block their view.
Right.
That'd take the cake, wouldn't it? Blocking the view of the players.
Exposed dugout by Wilson.
Well, just tuned in, Mike Piazza with the night off. But what an ovation he got here when he was introduced in the pregame ceremony.
Well, that was it was just a shade below the reception Alomar got.
Really was. I'm assuming he'll be back in the lineup tomorrow night. Vance Wilson, though, has done an excellent job when called upon to give Mike a night off.
I think more than anything, the reason that Mike's getting tonight off were his at-bats the last 2 nights in Florida. Alomar just said he just doesn't look right, and I just needed to give him a night to clear his head.
And he also struggled defensively, and sometimes you give somebody a night off and he relaxes. The problem is with Mike, he knows that he could be called upon to pinch hit, so you can only relax much.
So Wilson battling it, 2-2 with 2 outs, and Wigginton at second. Hard hit, the right to Cabrera. Turn easy play. Mets unable to cash in. And the second inning and a half done now in San Juan. Mets and Expos, no score.
A new year.
Now tomorrow night on Fox Sports Net, the Islanders continue their West to knock off the #1 team in the East. It's game 2. Islanders in Ottawa. Starts with Geico Islanders game night at 6:30, and the puck drops at 7 right here on Fox Sports Net tomorrow. Now, in the category of you can't make this up, baseball trying to sell its product in this wonderful baseball country of Puerto Rico brings a French-Canadian mascot. I mean, are they kidding me? It's insane.
Tough year for mascots. How about the mascot in hockey that had his tongue removed? Of course, our buddy Mr. Met, all over Shea Stadium, very popular mascot.
Cordero taking the strike.
Can't beat the guy with the big-headed Shea. Mr. Met.
As far as I can see, every one mascot ought to go to the Philly Fanatics school.
Philly Fanatic has been terrific.
Well, I mean, that's terrific. The Fanatics Act is terrific. He just ought to make his money teaching everyone else how to do it. And there's a swinging strike on the appeal to first base ump Bill Miller.
I think the first guy that entertained everybody was the chicken in San Diego. You see Cordero couldn't hold up in that hook. Well, I'll tell you one thing. Coney is pulling the string of that breaking ball. They're watching him in a dugout. They go to the plate. He pulls it. He bounces it. And they swing at it.
Randy, he continues. The thing I keep watching with David Cone, I don't care what the radar gun says, he's getting batters to swing and miss.
And you know, he's smart enough to know that if he throws that fastball, throw it bad. You see that ball movement on that fastball? Now, he's not going to knock the bat out of your hand. He started in spring training. Well, I guess it started at a charity bowling event that John Franco puts on. Look at that breaking ball.
Great break on that, and quickly ahead of Wilkerson, 0-2.
So now Coney wants to make Wilkerson chase a bad ball. And Wilkerson knows in the back of his mind he can't. There it is.
Well, what David has told his fellow Met pitching mates is that really the question has never been about his arm. It was never about his arm. It was about the rest of him. Hips, knees, aches and pains. It was never about his arm.
Well, he's kept himself in good shape.
He got no break there. That's a pitcher's pitch, and he doesn't get the call.
He's kept his weight down. You see, 34th Major League Stadium. He's won a ball game in 29 different stadiums.
Got in on the hands of Wilkerson. Alomar makes the play, and they're 2 down.
So he gets him to chase some bad balls. He goes away with the fastball, and then when he needs to, he gets a little more velocity on a pitch inside. Now there's the master at deception with the baseball. I saw him at the hotel today with his son's little guys.
They're all playing in the hotel.
And they were throwing. You know what? Same motion.
The Montreal shortstop stands in. 2 outs, nobody on. Cone's next scheduled start is Wednesday night in Pittsburgh. And that would put him on track and to pitch at Shea between Houston as the second series of the next Tuesday.
If he has a good game here, if he has a good game in Pittsburgh, then the fans in New York with good weather, I think they'll turn out.
That's why you try to give him something to look at.
Yeah.
He'll miss the Florida weekend series when the Mets get home, but it would be somewhere in that Houston series where his next turn would likely fall.
There's a slider right on the corner of the plate.
This one's playable as well. Sanchez, Wigginton. Sanchez calls off the third baseman, and Ray plays that nicely. And David Cone exhales. He's got the long sleeves on this very hot, humid night. He's gotten through 2 innings.
The storied past.
Well, you see, no score. The Mets and Montreal Expos. A lot of history here in Puerto Rico. But here's the first major leaguer born in Puerto Rico, Hiram Bithorn. He debuted in 1942 with the Cubbies. He won 18 ball games. But prior to him going to the major leagues, they had some great players here that weren't allowed to play in the big leagues. And Orlando Cepeda's dad was one. He was called the Bull, and Cha-Cha called the Baby Bull. But, oh, what a history for baseball. And in winter ball for years, the Negro League players used to come down here and play winter ball. And then, as Ted mentioned earlier, kids who were coming up in the minor league players would come to San Juan and play winter ball in Puerto Rico, and it helped their careers.
Now here's Puerto Rico native Rey Sanchez, all 1-1. And to finish that story about Hiram Bithorn, for whom the stadium is named, the first major leaguer born here, and you saw he had that great year in 1943 for the Chicago Cubs. Sanchez hits that ball well to left field. That drives Wilkerson back, but he's got room right in front of the fence. So Sanchez gave one a ride, but just missed getting it out of here.
This place would have erupted if this ball went over the wall. Rey Sanchez, a popular figure here in Puerto Rico, and it's just short, so they'll say here in Puerto Rico, he's got warning track power. Even in a bandbox, you don't want to hear that in this ballpark. This is a good player right there. Runner-up Rookie of the Year last year.
Here's Cone now, had a base hit, and one official at that last one.
We're talking about the base. This is not dead for baseball, but if Major League Baseball ever came here, but in the Winter League Baseball, it would be done over.
Well, Hiram Bithorn, 1943, has this fabulous year pitching for the Cubs, and in 1944 he was serving in the United States Armed Forces in World War II. Puerto Rico, of course, was granted United States citizenship in 1917. It's a Commonwealth nation right now as Cone goes down swinging. And unlike Cubans and other Latin American countries, Puerto Ricans served in the military. This copyrighted telecast presented by authority of Sterling Mets. They may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Sterling Mets.
So, you know, I guess you could say the most famous Latin American player who almost played Major League Baseball or minor league baseball was from Cuba, Fidel Castro. If he had a better curveball, he'd have been with the Washington Senators instead of fighting the Washington Senators.
So here's Cedeno now trying to get on and keep this inning. That's without a hit. First trip through against Ohka. What strikes you about being here in San Juan? This is the first day I've ever been in Puerto Rico. What strikes me is that culturally, this is a lot less. Look at the photography jam. That's what was causing the delay before first pitch.
A couple guys there have a good shot at the back of the heads of their colleagues.
And of course, all to see Alomar. Culturally, this is a lot less shocking than going to Montreal. That's what strikes me. You come here, it's a United States Commonwealth. There's no passport issues. English is a compulsory second language in Puerto Rico, so English is spoken freely. You can use United States money. None of the issues that confront everyone when you go to Montreal are present here. It's much easier, quite frankly, to come here. Cedeno does not swing, and he draws a walk, and that'll get Alomar to the plate here.
Well, a sold-out crowd at the stadium tonight to see the Mets and to see the Expos. And let's take a look at our Mercedes League leaders, Puerto Rican ballroom players. Runs scored. Robbie Alomar tied with Roberto Clemente. Orlando Cepeda, number 3.
But could you write a better script for this game? Alomar coming home to play a major league game in Puerto Rico for the first time, and if he scores a run, he'll break the tie with Clemente.
Legendary Roberto Clemente. Clemente had some magnificent numbers. According to Elias Sports Bureau, they said he had those numbers in a different era, which is true.
Alomar taking a strike. Cedeno, the runner, one steal, the only successful steal by the Mets so far this year, and he's going here, but Alomar, who had already taken a strike, didn't take another one. It's 0-2.
Talk about Clemente. Elias said his numbers were amassed in a pitching-dominated decade of the 1960s. Batting .328 over that 10-year span. Next best was Matty Alou.
I think that's very accurate. I think that's how you measure player statistics in their peer group.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is high too. Alomar. That's why when you look at the numbers, for example, a Willie Mays compiled playing in the 60s,
the best ever,
in huge ballparks, in a pitching-dominated era. I mean, those are things you have to take into account. Cepeda put up a lot of his numbers in the 60s.
As a teammate of Willie Mays.
Right. Alomar fights it off.
Now Alomar has that nice fluid swing. There's some numbers by Roberto Clemente. Look at that, 328 average in the 60s. Led outfielders in assists. A National League record 5 times. 21 for 58. That World Series really helped him get some.
Here's the point about that average in the 60s. Actually, I should say his career batting average. His career average was 317. Oh, he's got Cedeno picked off. So falls into the Chavez group, gets picked off first base. That ends the inning, and Alomar will get a fresh turn when the Mets come to the plate in the 4th.
And you hope it doesn't hurt Cedeno's confidence, because he can lose his confidence on those base paths like any place else. And he's picked off, and it becomes an easy out once you're picked off.
You can run.
Well, David Cone operating like right now like most Met starters have this year. Not a lot of runs to work with, and he's in a scoreless game as we go to the bottom of the 3rd in San Juan. Don't forget, Mets.com has the broadest online selection of items for the team you love. Shop Mets.com, the official site of wearing your heart on your sleeve, cap, pullover, and lots more.
Well, right now, David Cone has a lot up his New York Mets sleeve. He's mixing up his pitches very well. This is a great example for a young player who doesn't have overpowering stuff, to watch David Cone manipulate the strike zone.
Facing Jose Macias to start the inning. Macias, the super sub right now for Frank Robinson, gets to start at 3rd base. Frank Robinson saying tonight that he thinks people sold his team short this spring. That they've got great players in Vladimir and Vidro, and they still have good pitching. They lead the league right now in pitching.
I never thought he was going to only manage for 1 year. Not with his competitive drive, and at the end of the year last year, he was talking about how this team could be a good team, and he wouldn't mind being around for a few more years.
Cone misses low there to put Macias on with a leadoff walk.
Well, David's better off challenging guys like Macias. Schneider, the left-hand hitter's got some pop in his bat. Tomo Ohka will be the 3rd hitter this inning, so it's the bottom 3 of the order. And when you're a pitcher, you want to really go after the bottom 3.
Jay So getting loose. He'll start tomorrow night here in San Juan. They'll face Livan Hernandez. Schneider, backup catcher, takes a ball.
Well, Schneider and Barrett put together a real good year for the Expos last year in combination.
And Schneider hit 275 as the backup in about 200 at-bats.
Drove in a lot of runs and hit some home runs.
Out to that short porch, and Schneider has got it, and the Expos lead 2-0. So the first runs given up by David Cone come on Brian Schneider's first home run of the year.
Sure has been a lot of talk in that dugout. You got to go up there and wait. So Schneider here hit those 5 home runs last year, picks up a home run. We talked about the size of this ballpark. He gave it a ride, and it's now 2-zip in favor of the Expos.
And Ohka takes a strike.
Ball was out over the plate. Fastball. And David Cone knows when he throws a fastball, it's got to be perfect location.
Ohka, who had 2 hits against Cone last Friday, hit that one well, but played by Sanchez. Here's our upcoming Mets schedule. The Delta Mets schedule, the games here in San Juan tomorrow night and Sunday afternoon will be seen on the WB 11. And then Monday we're back here for the finale in San Juan, and note the odd start time for travel reasons. We're going to play at 4:30 Monday afternoon here at Fox Sports Net. And then the road trip finishes up in Pittsburgh. Mets on MSG Tuesday and Wednesday, and back here on Fox Thursday night. Long for the Mets to Pittsburgh, so they moved up to facilitate that. They moved up the start time to Monday. The Expos are staying here. The Expos are playing tonight the first game of what is for them a 16-game homestand. Baseball's scheduling 10 games here, and then they'll go play 6 more in Montreal. That's by Vaughn's dive, and Chavez has his second hit.
And good speed on first base once again.
This guy has been a find. The guy that was in the Mets farm system for a while, and when he came up to the Expos in September, he started whacking the ball all over the place and won the center field job.
And if you can get on base, you know, by hook or by crook, Juan Pierre, in this case, Indy Chavez, the manager loves it. He'll lead you off. You can steal some bases for him. You can be an impact player by stealing bases and making the defense anxious.
Well, maybe a little more discouragement. Let's try to run with Wilson. Good throwing year last season.
Threw out 51% of the would-be base stealers.
Let's take a look at our Tri-State Consumer Auto Insurance quote book with Jose Vidro about the battles that all of the Puerto Rican natives will face when they play these games here. Rey Sanchez was saying the same last weekend at Shea. So for weeks he'd been getting phone calls from people that wanted tickets. Come do this and come do that. One of the great baseball men in the 60s and 70s, Bob Lillis, longtime infielder. The manager said there's 2 answers for that. There's no for the people that you really like, and for everyone else, it's heck no.
So Bob had a lot of friends at the end of those no's and heck no's.
And anyone that ever ran across Bob Flea Lillis knew that I gave him a break on the heck no. Vidro. Moving the ball into the strike. Puerto Rican flag. Island of the United States took possession of in Commonwealth status just over 100 years ago, 1898, the Spanish-American War. U.S. citizenship granted to Puerto Rican natives in 1917, and then they started playing Winter League Baseball here in 1938. We've hit that a long way. That's over Cedeno's head, and will bounce on the turf out of play, and that, for the moment, will save a run. Chavez has to stop at third. So for the first time, the ball's starting to get hit loudly off cone.
I'm sure Frank Robinson told these players, go up there and make him beat you with the fastball. Wait on him. Pitch was down, and the ball was smoked out the bat of Jose Vidro. They over the wall. And now they're going to walk Pedro Guerrero. I should say Vladimir Guerrero. They're not even messing around with him here.
So Vladimir will get the intentional walk, and that'll bring Cordero in with the bases loaded.
Now, when you see a finesse pitcher and you're a hitter, you talk to the good hitters. They go to the plate and they think you've got to beat me inside and then I'll give it to you. But I'm going to wait as long as I can on your other stuff. And that's what the Expos are doing right now. Waiting. They'll tell you, the good hitting instructors will say to you, wait and be quick.
So big moment for David Cone. Trying to stay in the game right here. Cordero struck out his first stop sign and puts the brakes on late. So Cone got the ground ball he wanted, but on the turf, it scooted past Wigginton, and here comes an RBI hit for Cordero.
Well, you put it on the ground on the artificial turf with some velocity, you're going to pick up a base hit unless you hit it right at the infield. Ball shot into left field, so an RBI for Cordero. A good strong throw from Cliff Floyd. And you see Vidro being held on at third base. They challenged Floyd in New York, and he threw the ball well.
So 3-0 Montreal. One out, base is still loaded, and Wilkerson at it. Cone really needs a ground ball at an infielder. Foul pop. Wigginton with a long run, and boy, he got gun shy there at the target.
You know, he's not used to running that far.
Right, that's exactly right.
So you keep assuming, am I close? Am I close? Am I close? And then he did get gun shy as he got a little bit closer to the tarp. He took one last look, and he still had a few feet to go, but you run a long way at this ballpark.
And if Wigginton catches that ball, see where the tarp is. If he catches that ball, Vidro tags. He's coming home. Wigginton would have been that far out and in bad position to throw.
You're a left fielder with your back to the plate that far away from third base.
1-1 to Wilkerson. 1-2. Wilkerson had a good year for Montreal last year, moving between center field and left, but one issue with him, he struck out over 60 times. Number that one had to reduce. Member of the U.S. Olympic gold medal baseball team in 2000.
He's a good, solid player. The Expos have some fine young talent on this ballpark. Of course, everybody will be overshadowed by the right fielder, Vladimir Guerrero.
And it's funny because as you look at the Expos dugout, you'll see, I mean, no team has better mined Latin America, Puerto Rico, Venezuela for talent than Montreal.
And for years,
no team.
Really, for years they've gone down there.
Mason hits that one a ton, and there's the big blow. Grand slam. Well, here in the bottom of the third, the Expos make this park look small. 2 home runs, Wilkerson with a slam, and it's a 7-run inning. Frustrating because Cone was ahead. He'd gotten 2 strikes on Wilkerson. And then left one. Oh, a hanger. A hanger.
Hanging breaking ball from David Cone, and Wilkerson got all of it.
So 7 runs in for Montreal, still just 1 out, and the 9th batter of the inning is Cabrera. The Mets have nobody warming up. Remember, the Mets bullpen in the 10th game of the year, and the bullpen's been worked pretty hard. Now with no off day, now Serta's starting to they are getting Jaime Serta up. He's going to have a day off for a while. This one up playable for Vaughn. Vaughn makes the catch. Now that was strange because that chant we just heard, that's a French chant. And we hear in Puerto Rico, that was the French chant of Allez, Allez. Let's go. Let's go. You don't even hear that in Olympic Stadium. That's so loud. Here's Macias, who opened up the inning with a walk. people wearing Alomar gear here at the stadium tonight. Mets would love to see, even though Cone has been rocked in this inning, the veteran be able to just straighten himself up and give him another couple of innings and not chew up the ball. Burnitz broke back, now comes in to make the catch, and that puts an end to the inning. But the Expos break through in a huge way against David Cone. Brian Schneider opened the inning with a 2-run homer. And then the crushing blow, Brad Wilkerson's grand slam, 7-0. And two sons that have served Major League Baseball a long time. The First Lady of Puerto Rican baseball, Maria Alomar.
I have, because God gave that talent. They need to work. That's hard for me, because that's cost my family not together. You know, it's hard, because I miss my kids so much and my husband, you know. But when you have some talent, you need to work hard and make the things that you really love. If they love baseball, work. That's it.
Maria Alomar talked yesterday to Clemson Smith Muniz. And Robbie Alomar at the plate here for the second time. Grounded out to first in the first inning.
Robbie liked baseball from day one. His dad was his idol. Sandy Alomar Jr. was a baseball player for a while as a youngster, then got away from it. And Sandy Alomar Sr. told me that his son, Sandy Alomar Jr., liked dirt bikes, now motorcycles, where Robbie, just baseball. Robbie used to get in the backseat of the car after being he can't go to a game, and his dad wouldn't know he was hiding in the backseat of the car on the floor. He'd be halfway to the game, an hour away from home, and he'd sit up, take him to the game. Robbie loves the game of baseball. His dad was a 15-year veteran, played a little bit with the Mets. In fact, he was with the Yankees right there. And you see Robbie in the middle front.
How about that? Their winner ball in Ponce. Alomar holds up and takes the walk.
When the Padres signed the two brothers, I heard a story that the Blue Jays after that went in to try and talk. Well, they had agreed in principle to sign. The Blue Jays then went to them here in Puerto Rico and said, we'll give you this, this, and this, a lot more than the Padres. Sandy Alomar Sr. said, I gave my word, and they signed with the Padres.
So the Mets get a leadoff runner's third walk issued by Get to give up a hit. Floyd the batter. Cliff struck out his first time. Long behind him. Well, it's a hitter's ballpark, and the Mets need to get those bats going. Now fallen behind thanks to that huge 7-run inning.
Who would you say is the best Latin American player of all time?
Broken bat, but it's going to find the hole. Floyd will take that. Got some hard hit balls at people. There, the broken bat roller on the turf. Base hit. 2 on, nobody out.
So Cliff Floyd hits it in the hole. Runners on first and second. The Mets need a long ball. They need a long ball to get back in this ball game, and this guy can provide it.
Here's Ball and grounded to short his first time.
Vaughn's got to get a pitch, and it's a good matchup because, as we mentioned, Tomo doesn't like to see Mo Vaughn at the plate. Mo Vaughn historically is clobbered him.
Just what Montreal wanted. Right now, nothing going right for the Mets. Double play ball on one pitch. Alomar to third, 2 down.
Take a look at that double play again. Tailor-made. Vidro to Cabrera. A lot of time to get Big Mo at first base.
right now that trying so hard to get runs. A lot of first pitch swinging again and nothing going right. So Ty Wigginton trying to get a 2-out hit and just get the Mets on the board here. Get Alomar in with a historic run. Remember, if Alomar, the next run he scores will break the tie he presently holds with Roberto Clemente. Most runs by a major in Puerto Rico. 1-1 to Wigginton. Ohka's the kind of guy that, when he's working like this, his teammates are going to love him. He doesn't budge off that pitching run. Takes the return throw. Let's go. So he has no wind up to the set. Just puts those hands at the belt.
Just a few years ago, Frank Robinson, who was the disciplinarian in baseball, went around and talked to the major league players about helping to speed the game up a little bit by staying in the batter's box, pitchers getting on the rubber. So you know his players are going to do it.
And a wide one there to Wigginton. So now the Mets have 2 on again. 4th batter that Ohka has walked. And Jeremy Burnitz will get a shot here. Burnitz hit the first foul pop-up where he got victimized by the foul ground in this park. Jose Macias went a long way down the left field line to haul it in. Swinging the bat pretty well. Got a night off last night so that Timo Perez would play. Fastball for a strike, and it's 1-1.
We talked about how Mo Vaughn had to see if he can lift that ball over that right field fence. Same with Jeremy Burnitz. The Mets need a 3-run home run or grand slam to get back in the ball game.
Him up. And this will be for Cabrera. So the Mets got 3 men on in the inning, but unable to score. 7-0 Expos.
And now by the authority.
Just over 30 years ago at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh, John Matlack of the Mets pitching and Roberto Clemente collects the 3,000th hit of his Hall of Fame career. A moment to treasure for a player who played his whole career in one uniform. Just the 11th man to reach that. We never ever dreamt that day it would be the last hit that he would ever get. But his memory lives on so prominently in this country where he is beloved, and we are honored to be joined right now by Roberto Clemente Jr. Nice to see you, Roberto.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Who was also working, actually doing radio broadcasts back to Montreal of the games here in San Juan. But just give us what does it mean to see Major League Baseball, to see great players of Puerto Rican descent playing there?
Oh, it is great, really. People here are very excited about it. It's a dream come true for a lot of people here.
Schneider rips one foul.
You know, you see your Puerto Rican players, all the Latino guys coming back to an island where people love baseball so much that a lot of people don't have the opportunity to go to the States and watch a Major League Baseball game, and to be able to have 22 games here during a regular season is something very, very exciting.
Roberto, when your dad broke into baseball, the Latin players didn't get the respect, according to the things I've read about your dad. And he was upset at that. He was very proud. What do you think he'd feel about the way the Latin players are treated today?
Definitely a lot different. He actually, when he came up, I think he used the stage where he got to a level where people needed to listen to him when he spoke. And when he got to that level, he actually took the advantage of that and actually spoke about the injustice that he felt the players were getting. And it's something that right now he'll be very happy how everyone is, in a way, almost at the same level. Maybe there's some things that he would talk about being changed still. It's a lot better than it was before, definitely.
It is interesting when you think that your father was in so many ways a pioneer. In 1955, when he broke in with Pittsburgh, it was still a barrier that he had to help break.
Well, he was actually, he had 2 strikes against him. He was actually a black Puerto Rican, so, and also he had the language barrier. So he went through a lot. He really did go through a lot, and he learned the language, and he still had his accent, a heavy accent, but he was a very outspoken man, a very intelligent man, and it's something that sometimes he was, I guess, misread in many ways, but he was very proud to be Puerto Rican, and he took upon himself to be the ambassador of the Puerto Rican and Latin American people, and that's the way he lived his life.
Well, there's Alomar, but the throw not able to get Ohka. Great range by Alomar, just couldn't make that off-balance, difficult throw.
Well, the fans here in Puerto Rico wanted to see this play made because he's been doing this for years. 15 years in the big leagues, he just couldn't stop the to hit that wet surface on the artificial turf. Roberto, I got to ask you, as far as baseball in Latin America is concerned, if a major league team came to, say, San Juan and was permanent, what would that do to the winter leagues?
To the winter leagues, that's a very good question. I think in some ways, I think it would enhance it.
Nice play there by Vance Wilson. They get the lead out. 2 down.
And in some ways, I think it would enhance it. At the same time, I truly believe that in some other way it would hurt it because people would be, so much involved with the major league level caliber that when you get guys from AAA and minor leagues playing in the winter ball, they probably won't even come to the ballpark. So it's something that it's a catch-22.
2 down as Vidro with that, and we were we knew it was going to be a great reception, but I think to see how Robbie was received here tonight, Roberto, I'm even slightly amazed at the level of respect and appreciation for him.
Well, Robbie has been, he played so much baseball, even in amateur ball, with so much class and excitement that people remember him as a young kid. And when you talk about, idols in the island, Robbie is one of them. And ironically, he's named after Dad. He's named Roberto because Sandy Alomar Sr. wanted to have Roberto in the family, and out of respect, he named Robbie Roberto.
Middle, just eludes Sanchez, and so Vidro with a 2-out hit that'll get Vladimir to the plate.
Who would be the player your dad would respect as far as ability is concerned today as you look at the footage of Roberto Clemente?
Ability, in any position, I think one, he would actually love Robbie. He would love Robbie. He's a complete player. He's a very smart player, great baseball sense, someone that he studies the game. Ability-wise, I think Vladdy Guerrero is one of the guys that if you talk about talent, raw talent, and the possibility of getting to that level, is Vladdy Guerrero.
Was it tough to follow in your dad's footsteps and try to play baseball here?
I'll tell you what, it was very tough. It was very tough because I was just having fun, trying to have fun playing the game, and people just wanted to do the comparison, and every day asking the same questions. It was something that it was a little nagging, actually, and it actually hurt me from used to win and my thing and having fun.
The name, of course, obviously is a great honor to be named after your father, but in some ways I'm sure it does leave a little bit of a weight on your shoulder in that regard.
No doubt, no doubt. It was something that big shoes to fill, and at the same time, you actually grow up from 7 years old up and missing him, and having to deal with every day talking about him actually made me miss him a lot more. So it's something that people don't realize, that you're an adult. You grew up without a father, and people look at him as an idol, as a baseball player, but I saw him as my father that I didn't have for so many years.
This, as we go to 2-1 on Vladimir Guerrero, this stadium, Hiram Bithorn Stadium, was the place that Roberto Clemente Sr. used to house all the supplies that he was sending to Nicaragua to help those that were ravaged in 1972. He was coming here to take all of those supplies to the airfield to act in a humanitarian way. That must make you feel very proud.
That's something that very, very proud of. After 30 years, still revered and still remembered is something that's very overwhelming.
Back, so 3-2 now to Vladimir with 2 outs, and the cone trying to work hard.
Did your dad ever talk, or your mom ever talk about the possibility that your dad almost was a Dodger?
Yes, actually, in the O'Malley family, every time I sit down with them, it's like they say that was the biggest mistake we've ever made, and you know, it happened.
Low. So Vladimir walks. They're loaded up, and Cordero. Cordero has struck out. He has singled in a run. Vern Rule's going to make a trip to the mound first here.
Actually, it's great actually that Montreal is playing in Puerto Rico, because that's where Dad played, and you know, signed with the Brooklyn Dodgers, and having you know, the first place that he played baseball was Montreal, and people actually from Montreal are telling me I remember him so well, and all the stories that everywhere you go, the respect that they actually pay Dad it's great. It's a great feeling.
Of course, we have in some ways a wonderful script coming here that Roberto Alomar is tied with your dad as we start play tonight for the record for runs scored by a player born in Puerto Rico. So undoubtedly Robbie's going to get the record. I would think a lot of folks would hope it will happen here in these 4 games.
It'll happen. I'm pretty sure that it will happen.
The Mets certainly hope it happens.
Yes. No, Robbie is a great friend, great family, and it's you know, I feel so proud that these guys are doing so well, and even when they tag my father in something, I still feel very proud that they have the opportunity to do that.
Cone trying to get Cordero. It's strike 1. But of course, there's one category that your dad still leads in and may well for a long time. 3,000 hits.
Oh, the gatekeeper. You know, to be able to go, you have to go through, you know, Roberto Clemente. So it's like a gatekeeper, and it's something that to be able to get to that plateau, you have to actually be consistent and play for so many years.
Round 1 and 2 on that montage we saw of your dad a few moments ago. What was wonderful were to see those highlights from the 1971 World Series and the tail end of his career, but that's really where America came to appreciate it.
They actually saw him many people saw him for the first time, and they never even heard of him. He was out in Pittsburgh. There was really no TV out of Pittsburgh.
But that series was just a centerpiece. Your father was such a spectacular player, and as you said, at an age where many people had thought he was at the end of his run, he came up with an MVP performance.
He really took care of himself. He was very proud on how he played the game, and you know, took really good care of himself.
Sharply in and makes Chavez at third skip out of the way.
Roberto, I asked you about the modern day player you would think your dad would like. Was there a guy that he played against that he had all the respect in the world for?
You know, he always said that Pete Rose. Pete Rose, for him, people asked him, well, who do you think is going to be the next 3,000 hit player? He said, I think it's going to be Pete Rose. And he had a lot of respect for Pete because he said he made himself. He worked hard to make himself be the player that he is, and he had a lot of respect for him.
Pretty good horse.
Yes. Yes, he knew. Dad knew that he studied the game very well, and very smart guy.
Cordero lays off. So now David Cone has run it out. It's 3 and 2, 2 outs, bases loaded. That man hit a grand slam his last time, so Cone would like to get off the mound, get the Mets off the field right here. Cordero, of course, is a Puerto Rican native. If he did something like that here, this place would look crazy.
People will be calling for Coco. That's his nickname, Wil Coco.
Were you surprised that the reception Mike Piazza got here tonight?
A little.
Unbelievable, wasn't it?
Yes.
Big breaking curveball, and David Cone got one he needed in a big way. Roberto Clemente Jr., thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
see the greatest Puerto Rican player of them all.
It's a Major League show.
Like trivia question tonight, among players born in Puerto Rico, who are the top 3 lifetime in stolen bases?
Well, one has to be the man playing second base for the Mets.
I think that's a sure thing. So here's Vance Wilson, who will lead off the top of the 5th for the Mets. Vance getting a start tonight. Mike Piazza given the night off by Art Howard for struggling in the Florida series.
And talking to Roberto Clemente Jr. brought back a memory. Roberto Clemente played against the Giants. As you look at David Combs, had a tough night here in Puerto Rico. Probably the greatest Latin American pitcher of all time was Juan Marichal. And Juan Marichal was pitching for the Giants, and he and Roberto Clemente were very close friends. And when the Giants go to Pittsburgh, he would invite Juan over to his house for dinner. Juan would go. Same thing in San Francisco. Juan would invite Roberto Clemente. Well, one time he invited him, and Roberto Clemente said yes, but didn't show up. The next day at Candlestick, Juan drilled him. As he was going to first base, he said, next time I invite you for dinner, and you say yes, you better show up.
Why do anybody who plays in the 60s, they tell those kind of stories, their eyes sparkle.
I know, it's a classic. I get the biggest kick out of that. Imagine hitting someone with a fastball because he didn't show up for dinner. And by the way, Juan Marichal mentioned a Latin American pitcher, was the first Latin American to pitch a no-hitter. That came in Houston against the old Colt 45s.
Right now the Mets just looking for something offensively to happen here. They held just 1 hit through the first 4 innings in a hitter's ballpark. Mike Piazza getting the night off. Clark talking to Cliff Floyd there. It's Wilson to the right side, but it's taken by Cordero himself, and there's 1 away. New York Mets baseball brought to you in part by the most respected, honored, and heroic 4x4s out there, only in a Jeep 4x4. By Aflac, ask about it at work. And by T-Mobile, get more minutes, more features, more services.
Sold out here at this ballpark. Seats about 20,000.
Rey Sanchez, and another story that has been overlooked a little bit as Joe McEwing is on deck to bat the cone. Rey Sanchez and Robbie Alomar coming here. Have a chance this year to do something that's never been done before. No double play combination comprised of 2 players born in Puerto Rico has been a regular full season double play combo when they hit the game.
Kind of surprising because when you think of the Latin American players, you would think of them as middle infielders for many years.
Well, of course, the Dominicans have dominated the shortstop position. But you have to go back to 1989, Pittsburgh. Chico Leaned and Ray Quinones played about 60 games together as the double play combo. Elias went back and looked through all, and that's the most games in the low 60s, I believe, ever played by a combination in one season. Fouled away by Sanchez.
Latin American players for years, when they would show up to play professional ball, they were good off-speed hitters, good breaking ball hitters. They saw the breaking ball as a youngster in Latin America a lot sooner than the kids in the United States. Because in the United States, they tell you, you know, you'll hurt your arm throwing a breaking ball, where in the Latin American country, they throw the breaking ball at a young age. So you learn how to hit it.
Jaime Cerda warming up. Sanchez gives this ball a ride to center, but harmless ball to Andy Chavez. And that's out number 2. Of course, the players, Rey Sanchez is one, Ordonez was clearly one. Vladimir Guerrero for most of his career has been that way. Swing the bat.
Oh, they all swing the bat.
And that's the old line, is that you don't get noticed in countries outside of the United States unless you hit. You don't get noticed by drawing walks.
Yeah.
And I've asked this question a lot in the last few days to people, and it's almost a unanimous refrain: is you're not going to change people in the big leagues once they get here. They've done it for so long. They're not going to change. You change it in your organization.
It's like sliding into first base head first. But this kid here is a superstar at a very young age, and he's only going to get better. You know, you talk about Latin American players. They really revolutionized the defense in baseball. They added some pizzazz to the defense. It used to be the ball, used two hands.
Boy, Ohka's just completely shutting the Mets down here. Not a threat, just one broken bat single in 5 innings is all the Mets have, and it's 7-0 Montreal.
She's all you'd ever want. She's the kind I'd like to pump and take to dinner.
In San Juan, Clemson Smith Muñiz is with another member of Puerto Rico's baseball royalty.
Orlando Peruchin Cepeda, Hall of Famer, known as the Puerto Rican Bambino. Orlando, you achieved a lot in your baseball career, but did you ever dream that you would see Major League Baseball in San Juan?
Never in my life. I'm very thrilled that this what's happening in Puerto Rico right now. I just hope that the people that respond to this game, so someday we can have a franchise here.
Well, do you think San Juan can support a Major League franchise?
Who knows? Let's see what happens for 20 games.
You and Roberto Clemente opened the doors, were the first to show that Puerto Rican players could be superstars. Now we have a new generation that is very good. Roberto Alomar, Igor Gonzalez. What do you think of them?
One great ball, they're going to be future Hall of Famers. Like you say, Roberto Alomar, Juan Gonzalez, Ivan Rodriguez, Jose Vidro. They got great ball players, and someday they will be in the Hall of Fame.
Orlando, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Back to you, Ted.
All right, Clemson. It's great to see Orlando Cepeda here. Another one of those people's filled with joy as life really took a great turn when he was voted into the Hall of Fame several years ago.
And he was a great player. In fact, he signed with the Giants, and when the Giants moved to San Francisco, the fans in San Francisco embraced him quicker than they embraced the Say Hey Kid. They felt Willie Mays was a New Yorker.
Strike three. So Jaime Cerda taking over on the mound for the Mets here in the 5th. Strikes out Wilkerson, who had the crushing hit off Cone in the 3rd inning.
Jaime Cerda with that fastball on the outside part of the plate gets him looking. Well, David Cone had a tough night. He started off in an impressive fashion, getting the Expos to chase the bad off-speed pitches, and I'll guarantee you Frank Robinson had a conversation, told him to get up there and make him throw the ball by you. Don't chase the bad ball.
So Cabrera swinging at the first ball. Hits one out to right. And Burnett puts it away. 2 down. Well, the Aflac trivia question follows on the theme of the night. Among Puerto Rican-born players, the top 3 in stolen bases are obviously the Mets second baseman. By that, Jose Cruz Sr. Cheo.
I should have gotten Sandy Alomar.
Sandy Sr.
Yeah, he could run, right?
I didn't realize he'd stolen that many bases.
I remember at Yankee Stadium, Sandy Alomar was with the Yankees, and Dennis Eckersley was pitching for the Indians. Sandy got a base hit, went to first base. First pitch, he took off to steal second base. Alan Ashby threw the ball and hit Dennis Eckersley. So Dennis Eckersley's on the ground. Sandy, of course, stood in the second base save. Time's called. He walks over. Everybody's around Dennis Eckersley. Eckersley looks up and says, "How'd you get a hit off me?"
Rolled to the left side by Macias. A good inning. Jaime Cerda, that's what the Mets needed to get off the field. And after 5, it stays 7-0 Expos. And tonight's first pitch thrown out by the Baby Bull Hall of Famer, Orlando Cepeda. Ted Robinson, Fran Healy, Clemson Smith Muñiz, and we're happy to have all of you with us from San Juan, and actually a wonderful job done by our friends at MSG Network to make these telecasts possible. It's, you know, a lot of folks, we get spoiled, all of us, we get spoiled in our lives. We think everything in the world is going to be televised in a stadium here that was not prepared for Major League Baseball. As of Thursday of this week, everyone involved, our technicians, our crews, and television was kind of left on its own to deal with it, and they did a great job making sure that these games, and all 4 of them, will be coming back to you here on either Fox Sports New York or on WB11. The most amazing thing to me, Fran, they let Bill Webb into Puerto Rico.
Yep. He's adjusted well, though, in the truck, I'm sure.
Nice to see Denny Walling back. That's hitting coach who had an angioplasty done 10 days ago. We can believe that. Back in uniform. And a high fastball blown right by Cedeno, and Ohka is just making it look awfully easy tonight.
Well, you have a 7-0 lead. Just throw the ball up there, let him hit it. Threw the ball out of the strike zone, and Roger Cedeno chased it.
So here comes Alomar, and we'll have our Dreyfus look at the numbers and show that he is creeping up on Cheo, Jose Cruz Sr., and Clemente among games played. Puerto Rican-born players. I learned this a few years ago, Fred, and I truly believe, and I know Major League Baseball is committed to trying to make this happen. If there's going to be a World Cup in baseball, I think it's going to happen in the next, say, 3 years. It'll be a World Cup, not like Olympic baseball, which really is not a true representation of the best in the world, but a World Cup, just like soccer, where each country will field its best team. And if you think about coming to a country like Puerto Rico, only 4 million people live here, but think about the kind of World Cup team. If we were going to have a World Cup competition, let's say, at the end of this season, Alomar checks in time. Here's the Puerto Rico team. This could be, look at the team they could put on the field. Carlos Delgado, Alomar, take your pick of Sanchez or Hernandez at short. Vidro came up as a third baseman, so you could slide him there. As Alomar goes down swinging. And Ohka has his 3rd and 4th strikeouts of the night here in the 6th.
You could hear the sighs from the fans here when Robbie Alomar strikes out.
Now Floyd will bat. That outfield of Ernie Williams, Carlos Beltran, Juan Gonzalez. Catching is an incredible strength for Puerto Rico with Pudge, Jorge Posada, with Benito Santiago. That's not even getting to Javi Lopez, the Molina brothers. So a great position team. What strikes me as interesting about the Puerto Rican team, I mean, that's as good as you're going to get in the field, but this country has not developed pitchers like, for example, the Dominicans or even Venezuela. And the best Puerto Rican pitcher active in the big leagues right now is going to face the Mets here on Monday in Javier Vasquez.
Everybody probably wants to grow up here in Puerto Rico and be like a Roberto Clemente. They want to hit, run, throw in the outfield.
Those are really the 4 front-line pitchers of Puerto Rican descent right now in the major leagues. Pinheiro with Seattle, J.C. Romero, a good left-handed reliever in Minnesota. Veteran Hernandez now pitching for Atlanta. In a World Cup competition, the way it would be structured, you might not need that many pitchers. And I truly think it will be a spectacular event, and particularly in this part of the world. When you come to the Dominican, if Cuba is ever opened and allowed to participate in something like that, Mexico, Venezuela could field, another fairly small country could field a marvelous baseball team. I suspect that when it happens, it'll probably happen in a month like February before Major League spring training starts.
Well, I guess they'll be in shape. Will they be in playing shape?
They'll have time to get there, right?
Well, will Major League players take it serious enough in that month to be in playing shape? I don't know. I mean, they take a shape.
It's interesting.
They stay in shape.
Do you think there's any doubt the Puerto Ricans or the Dominicans would have any problem with the Venezuelans?
It's all changing today.
But the pride these people have, I think those players would be incredibly fanatical. I'd be worried maybe some of the U.S. players might not take it.
How about a lot of players that live here don't want to play anymore? Changing baseball world.
Ohka just plowing through the Mets. Fox Sportsnet catch Game 3 of the Eastern Conference playoffs. The Devils and the Boston Bruins from Boston. Devils game day gets you started at 2:30, and then the game at 3 o'clock Sunday right here on Fox Sportsnet.
We were talking about that World Cup of baseball. I think the next big thing for baseball, and they want to do it, and they want to do it rapidly, is look into the future and evolve internationally. And I think the next big step is Japan. I wouldn't be surprised. Of course, it's a radical move, but if they put a division of Major League Baseball in the National League in Japan and a division in the American League. 4 teams from the National, 4 in the American. You go to Japan, you go for 2 weeks, you don't go for 3 days. And I think that, you know, it's a hotbed for baseball, like some other countries, and they could support it.
Well, I was concentrating, of course, in the last half inning on the Latin American, South American countries, and of course, a World Cup would heavily feature Japan and Korea, two countries where professional baseball is played at a high level. Korea, I think, is the next blossoming field. I think Korea, what I saw at the Olympics a couple of years ago, there are some terrific baseball players, and we're starting to see a trickle of them in the big leagues.
Well, it certainly looks like baseball is focused on growing itself internationally. Yeah. I don't blame them because, you know, Japan is fertile soil for Major League Baseball.
He's third, second inning of relief. He'll face Schneider to start, then Ohka, and the top of the order in Chavez. Schneider with a 2-run homer in the 7-run third inning for Montreal tonight. Struck out in the fourth.
I'll tell you what would really help if Hawaii could support an American League team and a National League team. That trip to Japan, they can play going over and play coming back. But Hawaii couldn't do that.
You're talking about teams comprised of Japanese players.
No, you can.
Major League players?
You can sign a guy out of Des Moines, Iowa.
I don't think you're going to see that. I think that'll be a long time before we see that.
I think that I think you'll be able to draft. You get American players playing in Japan now.
Fouls one away. So it's 3-2 now to the catcher. I just don't think you're going to get front line players. If the player has an option, front line players will sign to play in the U.S.
I think they'll sign them right out. They'll sign them out of school. They'll have the minor leagues just like they have it here. They'll be involved in the draft.
Full foul by Schneider.
We've been talking about Roberto Clemente, magnificent player from Puerto Rico. Some great numbers.
Serta missing outside, and no one's quite sure what the count is here. Scoreboard at 3-2, but I guess that's not it. And Schneider finds the gap in right center field. That's good at bat by the Montreal catcher, and he leads off the bottom of the 6th with a double. Well, our Fast Facts tonight brought to you by Panasonic. Ideas for life. You know, Sandy Koufax was the player of the 60s, and there are a lot of loyal fans who felt Roberto Clemente had every bit as much reason to garner that honor. Great numbers.
Well, nobody could hit Sandy Koufax, and look who's here, Sandy Koufax. You know what? If Frank Robinson sees him, he might bring him down to pitch. Frank Robinson faced Sandy Koufax. He keeps himself in great shape, doesn't he? He was out of baseball in his early 30s because of trouble with his arm. For 6 years, he was unhittable.
So Ohka, the batter. We started to talk about this earlier. Obviously, Koufax had the incredible half a decade there where he was the premier pitcher that many people say they've ever seen. Clemente, even though his career batting average 317, I mean, today that seems, I mean, it's good, but it doesn't stand out. But when he played, the league average was 254. Serta looks at third, but it's the sure out.
Well, if you're going to go by those type of numbers, you go all the way back to Mr. Ruth when he had all those home runs and nobody else could.
Right.
It was embarrassing.
Oh, that's right.
It was almost like they're using a different ball when he was hitting. Right.
Except he didn't play against the best players.
Oh, I agree with that.
He didn't play against all of the best players, but that's another issue.
Yeah.
At this point with Clemente is to me is fascinating, and I think it points out why Maddox has done in his career since he's been in Atlanta has been as extraordinary as anything we've seen, because no pitcher has had a gap between his ERA, as you see Glavine, and the league ERA like Greg Maddux.
Yeah, well, Maddux is special until this year. Right. But he still might be special after his first 3 outings.
Glavine, who gets this weekend off, doesn't pitch again until the Mets open up in Pittsburgh Tuesday night.
Man, he's happy not to pitch here.
Infield in. And ball 2 to Chavez. Artificial turf, which thankfully we don't see very much of anymore in Montreal. So it's no difference with these games. And one more year in Philadelphia, and that's it. Montreal will be the last turf.
Whoever built this stadium loved offense.
Well, Matt Galani was talking to Matt Galani's managed down here quite a bit in winter ball. He was saying that, of course, there was grass here. When Art Howe played winter, there was grass. But they lost so many games to rainouts. They put the turf in because they were able to keep and save games that otherwise would be lost to rain. 3-1.
Chris Chambliss managed down here. By the way, you see who owns the restaurant right next to the hotel we're staying at? Ed Figueroa.
Yeah. Last night.
If he can cook as well as he can pitch, it must be a great restaurant.
Eddie Figueroa, who was the first Puerto Rican-born pitcher to win 20 games in the big leagues.
Ed Figueroa, there's Chris Chambliss. Chris was telling me about the restaurant. Ed Figueroa was the only pitcher ever caught who always started the game off with the first pitch, breaking ball. He would never throw anything but his curveball first pitch to the first hitter of the game.
So he walked to Chavez. And now the big boys are going to come up with a chance to hurt Cerda and the Mets, Vidro, and then Vladimir. So after a while, did people, I mean, batters had to know that, right? They were sitting on the first pitch curveball?
No, they just, first game, you never talked about it. You would tell the catcher before the game, first pitch curveball. Every time, curveball. I think he just didn't want to give up that fastball in case that first hitter was a Bobby Bonds who could hit it out. So he'd throw the curveball and then he was set to pitch. And you know what? Could have been a superstition with him. Probably gave a home run on a fastball one day and said, that's it.
So here's Vidro batting right-handed for the first time, and he fouls one off. This year, 4 for 10 as a right-hand batter with a home run, and Vladimir right behind him. And this is about as painful as it gets for a left-hand pitcher in the National League. You have Vidro and Vladimir back-to-back.
What if Vladimir played in a place like New York? He's played all of his young career in Montreal.
I think he's got a few people telling him that this year. It's kind of, to me, it's underplayed stories of this year is that Vladimir Guerrero, as an exceptional player as we've seen in recent years, I mean, he's going to be a free agent. Yeah. And you don't hear a lot of people talking about that. Vaughn giving chase, but he won't catch that one. And Vidro stays alive.
With Major League Baseball owning the Montreal Expos, it will be interesting to see what teams really go after Vladimir Guerrero next year. Of course, by that time, I think the Expos will be sold to somebody. A lot of talk about Virginia.
By next year, you think?
By the end of this year, maybe. Yeah, could be wrong, but I mean, assuming that they would like to have somebody own the ball club. Did you know that the Montreal Expos payroll is higher than the Blue Jays? Hard to believe, isn't it?
Major League Baseball basically gave Naya, the GM, a little more to work with this year.
And he's got some talent.
There's something of a lesson, isn't it, that Major League Baseball has given Montreal that sort of a payroll, and there are several teams. Tampa Bay is going at bare bones this year.
Yeah.
I believe Montreal's payroll is higher than Oakland. Fights it off. Now this game is really belonged to Tomo Ohka. He has never beaten the Mets, but tonight he has made it look easy, and were it not for a broken bat roller by Cliff Floyd, could be flirting with history here. Only hit the Mets have in 6 innings.
And we talked about the struggles Ohka has. He's had it against the Mets, but he gave up 1 hit tonight. He's been in complete control. Let's go back to Cliff Floyd's broken bat base hit through the right side. Other than that hit, it's been all balls.
Mets really haven't hit any balls hard tonight. Rey Sanchez hit one deep to left field, and that's about the only other one. Now the runner goes from first. Vidro hits it well to right. Burnett's back. Scott tagging up at third is Schneider. He'll come in to score as Chavez holds at first. So sacrifice fly to right by Vidro, and it's now 8-0 Montreal.
Now let's take a look at our Jeep game summary. See, Coney pitched 4 innings. Ohka's been in control.
And Wilkerson got the big hit when the Expos had 7 runs off Cone in the 3rd inning. Schneider hit a 2-run homer early in the inning, and Wilkerson hit a grand slam. Crowning blow. Now Vladimir bats with 2 outs, runner at first.
Talking to Frank Robinson, he'll tell you that Vladimir Guerrero can improve himself in areas. I'm not really sure what those areas are. He hits close to 40 home runs, steal your 40 bases, hit 300, drive in 120 runs.
The one thing that was a little bit difficult, I found it distressing to watch, was when the Expos played the Mets last September. And Vladimir Guerrero was really playing selfishly. He was trying to become a 40-40 man, and he ended up 1 home run short. And in the games against the Mets, he was running. When he ever reached base, he was stealing regardless the batter, the situation. It was a very self-centered time for Guerrero. And I was a little surprised a guy like Frank Robinson, with his reputation, didn't stop that.
My feeling, though, if a player is selfish and he puts up great numbers, that helps the team. I know what you mean, though. You're thinking of teammates and.
Well, it was just so blatant. That's what I felt. It was so blatant. And, this kid has obviously got a chance to put up numbers people have ever reached in their career, and the guidance he could get from somebody like Frank Robinson is so extraordinary. But the one question people have had about Vladimir through his years in Montreal is that he doesn't listen. He's very much a loner. Tim Raines was with the Expos, tried to be a leader for Vladimir, and Tim Raines told me once, Vladimir's just not a guy that listens to him.
Vladimir's mom was up there last year and the year before when Wilton, his brother, was on the ball club, and they all lived together. Mom cooked every day. Nothing wrong with that.
I mean, there's no question about his play. Listen, the guy plays every day. He plays hard. He's extraordinary. That was the one issue that's been, people try to counsel him on, hey, maybe this is the way you want to go. Maybe this is the thing you want to do. They found him a little difficult to get through to.
I can understand that, but I'll tell you what, if you have him on your team and he wants to steal that extra base or go for the extra home run, I'd go along with it. Because he's only trying to help himself and help the club.
Tonight on MSG Sports Desk, presented by Toyota. Deb Kaufman will be along with Game 2, Bruins Devils. Highlights, a report from Ottawa where the Islanders are getting set for Game 2, and highlights of the Masters. Haven't heard too much about that in San Juan, which really makes San Juan a great place to be right now. Anybody talking about golf there finally? All right, here's Wil Cordero, first and second, 2 outs. Nobody in the Mets bullpen, so Vern will be trying to make sure he gets Jaime Cerda through this inning.
Here's a guy, Wil Cordero, when he was coming out of high school, the Expos came down and had him signed. They got him out of the country, and the other teams were coming in. And they got him up and they signed him while everybody else was coming down to look at him again. And they felt it was going to be a tremendous steal.
Hit hard, but Sanchez and Alomar finish it. So 1 run in the inning for Montreal. And they leave 2 on base. All Expos. 8-0 after 6.
Major League Showdown in Puerto Rico.
Our McDonald's fans of the game feature a lot of youngsters. I'm not sure they've got a serious rooting interest in terms of teams. A lot of them are Alomar fans. There are some youngsters here we've seen with Met caps and Met shirts. They're the ones that... Man, it was nothing worse when you were a kid. You get so excited about going to a game. I remember when my dad would get tickets for a game at Shea, and it might be a month away. Built up all that anticipation, and you went to the game and it didn't go the Mets' way. Gosh, that was a bummer.
You mentioned the hats and the shirts today. 7-7. When we were kids, you could just barely get a hat. Now with the marketing of the team logos and uniform shirts, pants, hats, you can dress up. I remember the only thing you could get your hands on was a hat.
There's been nights I wouldn't mind getting my hands on Yuppie.
You don't like Yuppie, I can tell. I think Yuppie just gave you a gesture.
One ball and one strike to Vaughn. Mo is grounded to short, hit into a double play. Wigginton and then Burnett's here in the 7th. And Vaughn hits a towering fly ball. So on this night, it's looked nothing like the past nights for Mo Vaughn against Tomo Ohka. They've gone out 3 times quietly. Meanwhile, the 2003 New Mets official merchandise catalog is now available, offering a great selection of items like the orange BP jersey the Mets are wearing before every game. Call the number you see there on your screen or log on to starstruck.com/Mets to get your catalog.
Talk about kids, merchandise catalog. Don't forget at Shea Stadium this year, the Fan Fest is the weekend. Very exciting at Shea. Retired players will be on hand throughout the summer months. Hey, there's a shirt and a hat.
Best news the Mets could be greeted with when they get back to Shea next Friday. It would be about 60 degrees.
Oh, yes.
That would be nice. Wigginton fouls it back, 1-2. You notice how last week when things were a little cold at Shea and the players, I mean, Montreal's players looked like they were playing in the Arctic Circle last weekend. You notice how Bill Webb, our director, was very unsympathetic sitting in his nice warm truck? You notice that?
He doesn't care.
As Wigginton takes strike 3. That is 6 strikeouts now for Ohka.
Everything that man cares about is the camera angle. Sometimes it shows you it's a good pitch.
Well, meanwhile, the Mets have just completely basically just been lights out here against Ohka. They had one chance in the 4th inning when Floyd had the broken bat hit, and there were 2 walks. The Mets right now are not even making good contact.
Ohka is cruising. Of course, he got that 7-0 lead in the 3rd inning, and he started just to get ahead of the hitters, make him hit his pitch. Pulls the string on Jeremy Burnett. Evens the count at 1-1. It's funny, you come into a ballpark like this and you say, okay, I'm not going to really try to swing for the fences, and then you say, geez, I hate to leave town without trying to hit one out. It's a great hitter's ballpark. Look at that. 315 feet from home plate down the left field line. Right field, it's 313.
I mean, that's what makes what Ohka's doing astonishing. I mean, this ballpark, with what we've been told about it, and he's pitching a gem.
Look at the artificial turf. Look at that. Wow.
And he strikes out Burnett. Ohka has struck out 5 of the last 6. 7 strikeouts and just 1 hit allowed through 7.
A new year.
Have some of that Pepsi.
God Bless America being played here in San Juan during the 7th inning stretch. Our crew visited Roberto Alomar's home in Salinas, Puerto Rico, where all of his baseball artifacts are kept by his mother. And there's been a lot of awards. Actually, his brothers contributed a fair bit too. Maria Alomar's mom says it's hard to keep them all clean. She hopes Robbie gets a nice big house someday where Robbie can keep all those mementos. Robbie Alomar was born in Ponce, south of Puerto Rico. Don't you think?
Absolutely, but he's a little bit heavier. Look at a boiler on this guy. He's got some good moves, though.
Trying to mingle in American baseball tradition with a little bit of a local flavor. San Juan. First of 10 consecutive games here. The Atlanta Braves and Cincinnati Reds will follow the Mets into San Juan. Of course, I'm sure some disappointment. Everyone here, the Junior Griffey's injury will keep him from playing.
What's up, Bill? What gets to the truck? Skip to the truck. Similar, Bill, that?
Here's Brad Wilkerson. Say that about Webby because we love him. Mike Santini at the controls tonight with Bill Webb. Jim Gallagher and Fran O'Connell and our crews who said they'd put in a lot of hours, did a great job. I was told, when I got here tonight, I was told by somebody with MLB who was here on Wednesday that if you had been here 48 hours ago, you would not recognize this stadium. They did an incredible amount of work in 48 hours to get it ready. And the first thing they did was steam clean the field. The AstroTurf was not in good shape, and they literally steam cleaned every inch of it between Wednesday and today. Got a video board up in the outfield.
Game is sold out. A lot of people coming here tonight to see Robbie Alomar play. Very popular figure here in Puerto Rico. A member of the baseball's first family. We'll go back to the third inning and see want to see a grand slam. Bang! Hanging breaking ball over that right field fence, way over the wall.
Brad Wilkerson, one of the young guys the Expos have developed. Hit that slam that was the damaging hit. Wilkerson's first career grand slam. As Graham Lloyd gets ready. Gonna hope that he can pitch an inning if they get Serta here through his third inning. Here's Cabrera next. Of course, Montreal for a decade was a very comfortable place for Latin ball players because of their manager, Felipe Alou. This was always regarded as a place, the Expos, where a Latin player would have a great ear, a great leader, and a great place to develop. Felipe Alou coming back out of retirement, managing in San Francisco, and they are off to a 9-1 start. The best news for the Mets right now is that nobody in the East has done that. Nobody's run away or tried to run away.
Same thing happened last year. So right now, Art Howe is trying to get his troops in order. Trying to get Mike Piazza on that positive track with that bat. Mike not playing in tonight's ball game.
You know what's interesting about the Mets and right now, the fact that like much of last year, they're not scoring runs like they think they should. The Mets, when they brought Tony Clark onto the roster last weekend, Cabrera takes the ball, gave themselves 7 players. Of their 14 position players, 7 of them have had, as Vern Rule's not going to stop the game, 7 of them have had at least 100 RBI season in their careers. That's more than any major league team. Now, obviously, the key word there is had.
That's the key word,
right.
Yes.
But it still gives you an idea. There's an expectation.
Well,
the Mets will score some runs, and they hoped it was going to happen last year, and it never really did on a consistent basis.
Well, as you know, Ted, what happens is teams
make their decisions during the off-season how to build their ball club up on the resumes of the players that are out there. There's no guarantees once you go out and get the player that he will perform the way he did the year before. Vern rules.
Pep talk.
Tell him, Serta, throw it over.
Get through the inning. Well, let's take a look at the National League East standings as play begins tonight. And there it is, Montreal 5-4 on the road so far. Same with the Phils, and everybody bunched tightly like they were last year until about the end of May. That's when Atlanta kicked it into gear and pulled away from everybody.
I think they really surprised everybody by doing it last year.
Serta threw it over. Cabrera hits it a long way, but Burnitz will make the play. So the end result, a good one, and the Mets get the first out. So one down will bring up Jose Macias.
And now they're going to make a pitching change. Double switch. Art Howe going out. Timo Perez goes into ball game. Jeremy Burnitz will come out of the game. So a pitching change. Graham Lloyd is ready to go. Jaime Serta is coming out of the game. So is Jeremy Burnitz. So the old double switch.
All right, new pitcher will be Graham Lloyd. We come back to San Juan.
So, anything I should know about since the last time we talked?
I'm thinking about buying out one of my competitors. Trust for the grandchildren. Jill and I are separating.
Remarrying. Giving some money to my alma mater.
And I'll be inheriting a pretty substantial sum.
Jerry? Just thinking about where I'd be if I had to do this on my own.
Building wealth begins with a relationship, and our financial advisors know it. UBS Payne Weber.
Suarez, I have some good news. I'm taking you out.
Oh, you said you had good news.
I do. I just saved a bunch of money on my car insurance by switching to Geico. Give me the ball.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
New York Mets baseball brought to you with Hyundai. When your car comes with America's best warranty, you win. Hyundai. And by the New York Post, order 12 weeks of the Post and get a second 12 weeks free. Call 1-800-552-7678. Full house here in San Juan. They increased the capacity just over 20,000 Major League games here this year. And Graham Lloyd will take over on the mound for the Mets, making his third appearance of the year. And Jaime Serta got through 2 1/3. Timo takes over in right field. He'll bat ninth. Right now, what the Mets, of course, want to do in a game like this, you don't want to use the guys you're using to protect the lead, whether Stanton's, Strickland's. So Serta and Lloyd tonight get the mission to try to make sure that they can finish this game. Mike Stanton was not used last night. Art Howe thought it was important to give Stanton a night off. Now to the second. This is the first time in the history of Major League Baseball that a team has split its home schedule to this degree. Macias hits one out to Cedeno. There's 2 down. Of course, Dodger fans remember that the Brooklyns played some games in Jersey City at Roosevelt Stadium in the late 50s, but they played only 7 home games there in the last 2 years in Brooklyn.
Well, you know what?
There's a gentleman in the ballpark tonight that played in that ballpark and hit a home run at one time, had the most home runs in the most ballparks in baseball, and that gentleman is managing the Montreal Expos. Yeah. He hit a home run in that ballpark in New Jersey when he played against the Dodgers.
Ask him about that. Schneider grounds one to the right side, diving Alomar. Can he make the play? Yes, he does.
They've been waiting for that here.
Effin. And in an 8-0 game, Alomar goes all out to make this play and earns another big ovation.
Repair jobs are quick and easy with Quikrete Fast Setting Concrete. Just add water and mix. It sets hard in minutes. Quikrete. It's that easy.
Bottom line, we've got to boost margins.
Do more with less.
Slash the ad budget.
Scale back in the Pacific Rim.
Actually, IT has a plan. We're going with Dell.
Dell's as focused on you as they are on driving down costs. PowerEdge servers, Intel Xeon processors. It's the flexibility you need.
And that cuts costs, not productivity.
Smart move, Dave. Now we won't even have to cut the free coffee.
Find out how to cut costs across your enterprise. Easy as Dell. Call or go online today.
Oh yeah, summertime. Flip-flop, small top, party bumper non-stop. So much ice in my cooler, you think I was a jeweler. Bling, catching rain, making plays. Someone got more zap than a microwave. King, blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes too. All the honeys checking who? The king of Malibu. The silver villain.
I had lotion on my hands. I burn easily.
Right. Got it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's great news. I appreciate it. Goodbye. Well, I've got some fantastic news.
I'm out of here.
No, it's Geico. Just saved myself a bunch of money on my car insurance.
Geico. 15 minutes save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Saturday night at MSG, the Knicks visiting Cleveland. Cannon Business Solutions Knicks game night at 7, the game at 7:30, and then the Metro Stars season opener as they host the Columbus Crew at 10 p.m. It's all coming up tomorrow night on MSG.
So pina coladas here.
I was just going to say, I wonder what that frozen concoction is and why 6 of them are not here right now. Somebody's not doing their job.
Yeah, that's right. They're in the truck.
It's Wilson, Rey Sanchez, and Tomo Perez will lead off here in the 8th. And Vance hits one well. Did he get enough? Doesn't look like it. Second warning track ball hit by the Mets tonight.
Yeah, this is a sign of a bad night when you're playing in the bandbox and you feel that you're getting enough juice into a pitch and you send them out on the warning track or in front of the warning track.
Well, Tomo Ohka has given one hit, and that was a broken bat roller by Cliff Floyd to the right side in the 4th inning. He's walked 4, and he has struck out 7. And Sanchez, first ball to Macias, 2 down.
Well, you got to wonder as you look at Scott Stewart throwing in the bullpen, how a team that's going to play 22 of its home games here, the rest of them in Montreal, will fare in the Eastern Division of the National League. When you come here, do you feel like it's your home field?
Well, you know, it's funny, Fran, that's a good question. Because I thought, going into the season, I thought this was a huge disadvantage for Montreal. But the fact that this for them is just another road trip.
I mean, they're staying in the same hotel we're staying in. They'll be doing that for the next, what, week and a half?
Right, 10 days. Although the Expos had a lot of help. The Players Association took care of them. They're getting double per diem. How about that? Point being that I thought it was a big disadvantage.
Ted, you're starting to think like a player. Frank likes the idea.
But my feeling is going to change if the Expos continue to get pitching like they've gotten so far. I mean, their pitching has been terrific, and he knows that. They keep pitching anything like this. It's like the Mets at the beginning of last year. The Mets were getting pitching every day. Ohka makes a terrific athletic play. Gets Tomo. And again, the Mets go very quietly. There has been nothing. The Mets have completely gone dead with the bats since the Expos had the big inning early against David Cone.
Excuse me, lady.
The ML350, waiting for 7, has arrived.
On an all-new Monster Garage. Skateboard legend Tony Hawk and BMXer Rick Thorne drop by for the most extreme build yet, turning an RV into a mobile skate park.
55, you know, down a hill.
Are the crew's welding skills better than their skating? And what does Jesse think of Monster Air from the Monster Garage?
It's cool. I can dig the whole skate vibe.
Vert ramps to go on an all-new Monster Garage. Monday at 8 Eastern and Pacific, only on the Discovery Channel.
You can run, and you can begin in a place where you don't fit in, 'cause love will find a way. Hey, yeah, if you got one heart, you are following love like your way through the night in your heart.
Here's a great way to experience 2003 Mets baseball. For select games in April and May, you can get 2 tickets for the price of 1. Stop by your nearest Wendy's location for game dates and details. Tickets can be purchased at the advanced ticket window at Shea or by phone at 718-507-TIXX. Grab a friend, a family member, any fellow Mets fan, and head out to Shea.
High drive, deep to right field, way back going, over.
Mets baseball. Experience it.
After Mets baseball tonight, stay tuned for the best damn sports show period right here on Fox Sports Net. Tony Clark comes in to play first base for the Mets. As we go to the bottom of the 8th, Jamie Carroll is going to bat for Tomo Ohka, so there'll be no chance for Ohka to get his first career shutout. Don't forget all the games in San Juan. Television, the WB11 tomorrow night and Sunday afternoon. And then we're back with you here on Fox Sports Net Monday, 4:30 is the time, 4:45 for the first pitch. Jamie Carroll, the pinch hitter, against Graham Wood. I'm surprised Ohka got pulled. When he had a game this strong, a one-hitter.
Told you those complete games. Dinosaurs. They're going away.
Carroll fouls one. This one's got a chance to be caught if Clark can get there. Look at that run. Well, Clark made a good job there.
He ran a long
way to come close.
Watch him go. Double O.
Little basketball player. Still got those legs.
Yeah, he was a good basketball player. He's a good athlete. Just not unable to get to that ball there. Here's normal speed now. Clark with good speed. He's about 6'7" and just falls short of making that grab.
I don't know if the Expos knew about this foul territory. I'm going to ask that question more. If they knew that there was this much foul territory in this ballpark.
Well, the Mets knew because they were talking about it.
They did.
Yeah.
All I heard about was short fences, short fences, short fences. And I walked in here and saw the foul ground and couldn't believe it.
Well,
your team coming in here, you've got to make sure you've got corner fielders that are healthy and that can move. You can have some plays.
Helps the hitters. I should say it hurts the hitters to have that type of foul territory. Foul balls are caught, whereas, in New York, it's in the stands and you get another pitch to hit. That'd be an interesting stat to keep.
Oh, it's very clear.
I mean, the Oakland A's have a lot of foul territory at the Coliseum out there.
They're about the only ones left with the extreme foul ground. I've not been to the new park in Detroit, but I'm told they've got pretty healthy foul territory there. But everything else has become common. Goes a foul. Another factor when you start talking about a Roberto Clemente batting average versus an average in this year, and you think about the big ballparks that Clemente played in.
I mean, even you watch the catches today, they catch foul balls, but not a lot more years ago because they had more room to go back to that backstop.
Carroll still out in front of Lloyd's offerings, and it's 2-2. Piazza with the night off. Just talking now with Denny Waller. Count stays 2-2 to Carroll. Talked about baseball's international flavor. The country that would love to, I'm sure, to participate in a baseball World Cup would be Graham Lloyd's home country of Australia.
They put some players in the big leagues.
Carroll gets himself a pinch hit.
In fact, the Mets have a catcher in the minor leagues. They're very high on Huber, who is from down under.
Justin Huber, who's one of the bright catching prospects of the game. Andy Chavez, the batter. The Aussies had a little bit of a disappointment. They thought when they hosted the Olympics they'd have a better showing in baseball. Remember, Dave Nilsson, who's a very good hitter in the big leagues, left the game to go to run the Australian baseball effort.
He owns a professional baseball league in Australia. He owns the whole league.
I think it's owned. I think it's been fouled away by Chavez.
But imagine that, he owned it. It's pretty good. You know what you can do then? You can bat for it. On a team, play any place you want.
Carroll, the runner here with nobody out in the bottom of the eighth. Nilsson signed it. He thought he was going to try to go to spring training with somebody this year, and then at the last minute decided not to.
Was it the Red Sox?
Somebody who was going to try to make a comeback. The Aussies have had their share of players come through the ranks in the big leagues. Nobody has made a huge impact.
Well, you could say pretty much the same thing for the Cuban players. That they defect, they sign, they had some nice seasons, but you were expecting marvelous years, and you'll see Scott Stewart throwing in the bullpen.
Certainly, no one has had major, none of the pitchers for sure.
No.
Chavez just slaps one that'll go foul. That's a story that'll be watched with Montreal this year, since Livan Hernandez will pitch tomorrow here, and El Duque is on this team right now on the disabled list. Steve Fainer is here tonight, a writer, very highly regarded writer for the Washington Post, who wrote a book about a year ago. Spent a lot of time in Cuba researching this book, wrote about Cuban baseball and on El Duque. Fouls it. And I've asked him, and Steve Fainer, who said he's seen the birth certificates, that El Duque is 4 years older than what he's listed. He's listed in the Montreal media guide as 33. Fainer said he's seen the birth certificate, so that means El Duque is 37.
Surprised?
No, not at all.
Maybe he wrote the birth certificate.
What surprised me, I think, is I asked Steve Fainer about Livan Hernandez, who I know from San Francisco days. I think a lot of people suspected Livan was a little bit older, and Steve Fainer said no, that Livan is not. That his age is truthful.
Do you believe the birth certificate?
I assume so. Yeah, now you're talking about big crimes. It's one thing to.
That's never been done.
One thing to cheat on an application.
That's never been done.
I don't know if it's ever been done.
there's been a lot of question marks concerning the players.
Sure.
Not just because of applications.
I think most of that was corrected last year.
After 9/11.
Ball, glove by Clark. Nice play. No chance to double up Chavez, but that was nicely done by Tony Clark.
Take a look at it again. Bouncer, and Clark with that good height was able to get the ball over the head. Watch this. Able to throw it over the run base runner's head because he's so big. But you know, we're talking about the Cuban players. I know that scouts tend to really gravitate to the Cuban players, and I think there's a mystery involved. They don't know those players that well. I'm not talking about the age, I'm talking about ability.
Vidro just hit one. So there's the first big blast for a Puerto Rican player tonight as Jose Vidro hits a 2-run homer here in the 8th inning. Now the two best Puerto Rican born second basemen are here in the same park tonight. Vidro and Alomar. It's been Vidro who has had the offensive night, a single, a double, a homer, and 3 runs batted in.
Well, Vidro switch hitting second baseman just like Robbie Alomar. He thrills the folks here with his offense. Robbie did it last inning with his defense. Another look. Vidro has become an accomplished major league hitter. You heard Orlando Cepeda say that he keeps going, he'll be in the Hall of Fame.
No question if he can string it together a bunch of years like he's had in the last couple. I mean, that's what's changed so much in the game. A position like second base, which now is an offensive position. You look at Jeff Kent, for example, the numbers Jeff Kent has put up in the last 6 years that only Rogers Hornsby in the history of the game has done as a second baseman.
Different era.
Different era, exactly right.
We talked about it.
And then Vidro has a chance to do those kinds of things too.
The players are better today. The players are bigger, they're stronger. They got some great talent. They had great talent back then. These guys are in better shape, better equipment. I think Major League Baseball puts a very good product on the field.
I think I've made this point once or twice before, but again, you can't look at anything before about 1950 and compare it at all with anything that's happened since. Because now Vladimir Guerrero and Jose Vidro and then Roberto Clemente, they were allowed to play. The best people have been in the game. Before 1950, the best people were not in Major League Baseball.
Vidro said, I'm one of the best. He's talking about me. They want Vidro to come out for a curtain call.
Boy, gets Guerrero. So Vladimir has not hurt the Mets tonight. Struck out twice, walked 3 times.
Swings at that bad ball down and in. Frank Robinson told me that Guerrero at times makes too good of contact. He said he'd like to see him be more patient, take certain pitches. He said sometimes he'll swing at a pitch that he really can't drive, and he makes contact with it, and consequently will make an out. Where he thinks if he's a little bit more selective, he'll even be a better hitter. But boy, that's tough because you're going to take some of his aggressiveness away.
Wil Cordero had an RBI single in the 3rd inning. And it's a ground ball to Wigginton. Across to Clark, and that ends it for Montreal in the bottom of the 8th inning. They get a 2-run homer by Jose Vidro. His second of the season. A 3 RBI night for the Puerto Rican native. And the Expos try to ahead 10-0.
A new year. A new power. The girls kick up some New York attitude for the Washington Freedom. Saturday at 7. Only on cable. Only on Metro TV. Turn on, New York.
The best damn sports show, period. Sports television like you've never seen it before.
4 idiots sitting around talking sports. Great television.
Hang with the fellas. Cut loose with the stars.
What the hell does this have to do with sports?
Finally, a sports show that gets the picture. The best damn sports show, period, after the game on Fox Sports Net.
Attention Mets fans, get this year's Mets yearbook free and a free schedule poster when you subscribe to Inside Pitch. Inside Pitch is must-reading for every Mets fan. Each monthly issue includes player features, historical articles, minor league coverage, stats, national columnists, and more. 12 monthly issues of Inside Pitch are only $32.95, plus the free Mets yearbook and schedule poster. To place your order, call now toll-free 1-800-421-7751. Call today.
There's no better place to feed off the emotion of the crowd than here in New York.
That's excitement, plain and simple.
It's a great adrenaline rush. As a player, you feed off that. You know, there's a passion here for their team, for their sports. As a player here, you sense that, you feel that. I mean, they're into it. They know what's going on.
We have tremendous support in New York.
It's the best feeling in the world.
Well, Fox Sports Net will be back here Monday for the final game of this weekend set in San Juan, a holdover series, and Monday's game, 4:30. Well, will join us right here. Javier Vasquez will pitch that game. Puerto Rican native for Montreal, Steve Traxel will be the Mets pitcher. James takes over in the ballgame at second base. Ron Callaway goes out to play right field for Guerrero. And Scott Stewart comes on to work the bottom of the ninth after 8 superb innings for Tomo Ohka, giving up only 1 hit.
Yeah, that might be the biggest surprise tonight because the Mets have handled Tomo Ohka, especially Mo Vaughn at first base. But Ohka stands to win this ball game as Stewart throws that first pitch and is fouled off by Roger Cedeno.
Robbie Alomar will get a turn. Robbie without a hit tonight. Did make 1 sparkling play in the field. Cedeno tapped back to the mound, walked, and struck out. Other than Wiggins, and nobody's really hitting all that for the Mets. Cedeno, however, is noticeably struggling now. Just 5 for 33. Not getting on base in that top spot.
The problem is for anybody that struggles on a team is if the team's winning, everybody's patient. When a team is struggling, nobody's patient.
And when a team doesn't score, as the Mets are going through, you look at things like the leadoff right to try to jumpstart things.
Or like tonight, Mike Diaz is resting. It's funny though, when you win, all sins are forgiven. Greatest example I can give is in the World Series when the Yankees played the Dodgers and Reggie Jackson hit 3 home runs. Billy Martin gave him a hug. That's all sins are forgiven.
Foul to right by Cedeno. Tomorrow night, Jay will make his second start of the year for the Mets. Livan Hernandez will pitch for Montreal. And Al Leiter will face Zach Day on Sunday. And Vasquez and Traxel on Monday. Another tapper, and that'll wind up being a hit.
That's something that can get you going right there. Tapped out in front of home plate. Start feeling good that you got that hit. Relax at the plate. Boy, when a team's struggling and you're struggling, you get too tight at the plate. Right here, Roger hits the ball. It's on top of the ball. And there's no play at first base or an infield hit for the Mets center fielder.
And another big hand for Alomar. Grounded out to first, walked and struck out. First right-handed swings tonight. Well, when Alomar was introduced tonight, and they treated this like an open game.
It was wild.
Players were all introduced, running out to the baselines. Alomar was basically, it was Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Being introduced in Chicago.
A close second was Mike Piazza. Keep in mind, Pudge Rodriguez is from Puerto Rico.
Robbie's not even sure he can explain that. Why, for example, there's so many great catchers in this country, but not many pitchers.
I really and truly think it's Roberto Clemente was a guy, Orlando Cepeda guy that would swing the bat. And they became famous swinging the bat. And at every position you swing the bat except on the pitching mound.
Let's go back even in our recent memory, and there's just not. In fact, there's one Puerto Rican pitcher who's pitched a no-hitter, Juan Mayaguez, who was a guy that had a great future, wiped out by injury when he was with Milwaukee.
You know, it's interesting that name. I read an article when Mayaguez was in the major leagues. He went to a private school in, I believe it was Connecticut, and the guy who got him into that school was a guy we featured in the Open, Vic Power.
Is that right?
Vic Power was instrumental in convincing him to go to that prep school.
Vic Power, another name that you don't hear much of. He's a 7-time Gold Glove first base in the American League.
His right hand.
Fouled away down the right side. Callaway giving chase and just can't catch up to it. He's going to have to go down to that slide. Doesn't look like he wanted to do that.
Now, Vic Power was a great first baseman, a good hitter.
And a guy, really, in the Times, he had to change his name. His name was Pelé, Victor Pelé, a French origin name, and pronounced it Peyote, and had to change it, anglicize it when he came over to play. He was flamboyant before his time.
Oh, he was the original hot dog, and he was interesting to watch.
How about this? Alomar grounding into well, not a double play as Cordero can't short hop Carroll's throw.
Got a great story about Vic Power when he was in the minor leagues. As you look at this play again, as you can see, he had trouble getting the ball out of the glove on the toss, and then bounces the ball to first base. Daniel getting down that line in a hurry and a hard slide. Vic Power was in the minor leagues in the United States. He was playing in the South. And back then, for a black player, or for a black person, it was a difficult place to exist. And he was arrested for jaywalking. And he went to court, and they said, the sign said, "Don't walk." He said, "Yeah, but I thought it was for whites only because all the other signs are." I thought it was a great story by Vic Power.
Cliff Floyd with 2 strikeouts and a broken bat single into right field, and the only hit for the Mets tonight off Tomo Ohka.
Vic Power first came up, he was such a hot dog, he couldn't stay with the Yankees. He and Elson Howard signed with the Yankees together. But what a career Vic Power had. He was a great first baseman. I know we focused on some of the players from Puerto Rico, and Vic Power was a dominant player in the major leagues and was from Puerto Rico.
Another one of the all-time greats, Jose Cruz. We mentioned him tonight, a long, successful career in Houston.
Well,
his son, Jose Cruz Jr.,
5 home runs,
has got 5 home runs already, leading the National League.
You kind of forget Jose Cruz Sr. was as good as he was until, you come down here, you start looking at some numbers, and you realize the career he had. Tony Clark on deck. Tough night for the Mets. First game of the 4-game series here in Puerto Rico.
Floyd pops this one right up the chute. Schneider will take it for the second out. So 2 down now, and it'll be Tony Clark getting his first at-bat. Clark switch hitter, 1 for 6, and the one hit was a dramatic home run at Shea last Sunday that looked like it was going to win a game for the Mets against the Expos. But that they actually started what has been a tough week. The Mets have lost 3 games in their final at-bat for the opponents in the last 5 days, and now tonight getting one-sided here in San Juan.
Yeah, last night was a heartbreaker for the Mets. Armando Benitez gave up that base hit. Juan Pierre. But, as you mentioned earlier, nobody's running away, so you can turn it around in a heartbeat.
Popped up by Clark, so this should take care of things. Cordero puts it away, and the Montreal Expos win on their second home field as they beat the Mets 10-0 in the first game in San Juan. For Robbie Alomar, disappointed he was not able to get a hit tonight, although he did make one sparkling play in the field. But for the other Puerto Rican second baseman, Jose Vidro, a big night, 3 hits and 3 runs batted in. Back with a wrap-up in a moment.
The uncertainty of getting a home loan made Paul irritable. Then he went to Washington Mutual. Thanks to their flexible lending rules, Paul got a quick approval. Now he's always in a great mood.
Hey! Oops, my bad. No problem. I guess I'm having tea.
Congratulations on your new home, Paul. Glad we could make your day.
You got me.
Just in time for baseball season, order 12 weeks of the New York Post and get a second 12 weeks absolutely free. Call 1-800-552-7678 for 6 months of baseball at our lowest rate. Get the best sports in town. Games covered from every angle and all reported with that unique Post attitude. And every Friday you'll find NYPTV Sports, your weekly guide to the games on TV. So call 1-800-552-7678 today for a full season of baseball only from the New York Post.
So, tell me, where do you see yourself at age 65?
Not working.
Working. I love to work.
Spoiling my grandchildren.
I start in the Greek islands
I can't think that far ahead.
and make my way up through Italy.
Small vineyard, 25 acres, maybe top of a hill. Just a view that goes on forever. Really pretty. Lots of dogs.
Building wealth begins with a relationship. Our financial advisors know it. UBS Payne Weber.
Now tonight, a 7-run third inning for Montreal on David Cone was the difference in this game. It seemed to take all the fight out of the Mets. Nothing with the bats tonight for the Mets. Just 2 singles was all they could come up with. And the final game of this 4-game series will be our next game right here on Fox Sports Net. Monday at 4:30, we hope you'll join us from San Juan as the Mets and the Expos will play the final game. It was a terrific reception tonight for Robbie Alomar, but that may have been the highlight for the Mets, as Montreal had a home run barrage. Schneider, a grand slam, Wilkerson, and then Vidro made it a tough night for David Cone. Fireworks galore in San Juan, which means we've got a Mets post game coming up next.
In the morning, it's the WB11.